We're going to get the meeting started in about 1 minute. Okay, welcome everybody. Trying to keep us on our schedule that we have going today. Welcome to the December Community Information Meeting. I'm Lindsay Steinberg. I'm with Blue Flamingo. We are the communication consultants to the town of Paradise. I also have two other team members here with me today, so Val, and then we also have Kate upstairs. Tonight's meeting focus is all about trees. We have agenda available for anyone who doesn't have one with them. If you want to raise your hand, we'll bring one around to you. Tonight we're going to hear from a few different programs in order to fully encompass anything you want to know about trees and what's available. First, we'll hear from the Hazard Tree Program, which was with the town of Paradise, as well as Butte County and Cal OES. Then we're going to hear from Paradise FD at Cal Fire, Mayor Jody Jones on private roads, and PG&E and USDA. I'd like to take a minute and acknowledge the council members that are in the audience: Mayor Jody Jones, Mike Zuccolillo, Melissa Schuster, Greg Bolin, and Steve Crowder. We will also have a question and answer portion to tonight's evening, since the tree theme in general just yields itself to having questions that someone might have. So we have passed out a Q&A form that you can fill out throughout the program. Once you have that question, if you just want to raise it, we'll come around and get it from you, and then we'll ask these questions at the end of the program. We also will be having the agencies out in the lobby, and you can ask specific one-on-one questions as they yield to your situation that you don't want to ask in front of the audience. So with that, I will hand it over to the Hazardous Tree Program.
Thanks, Lindsay. Good evening. This is Laura Page. I'm the Disaster Recovery Director for the town of Paradise, and I'm so happy to see all you here tonight. I hope you had a nice holiday. As Lindsay mentioned, we're having a discussion tonight on trees, and I'm going to be talking about the Hazard Tree Removal Program. I'm just going to give a little overview, and then I'll be bringing Fire Chief Messina up to say a few words, and then Casey Hatcher with the county and Dina Wilson with Cal OES will join us, and we'll go over the entire program. But one thing I wanted to just say that with this program, we're very excited because it's going to take out this hazard tree removal program, this first step of it, a lot of dead trees that we need to get out of our community, and we're very excited about the partnership we have with FEMA and Cal OES in order to do this. We've worked very hard, the county and the town, with Cal OES and FEMA to get these programs started, and we're very excited that we're getting there finally, and we're just really extremely excited. So right now, some of you have been receiving notifications that your property is eligible, and more of you, as we add different sections to this program, looking very promising that we're going to get more roads, more private roads involved with this program, and it's, like I said, looking very promising, and as soon as we know anything about that, we will let you know. But we need everybody who is currently eligible, we need you to participate in the program on one way or the other. There's 2 forms like this. One of them is just a 1-pager. It's the inspection access form, and that's the private hazard tree removal portion of the program. And the one on my left is for the government tree removal program. So either way, it's necessary that you participate in one or other of the program so that we can, as a community, work together to get these trees out as soon as possible. We had great success with our debris removal program, and we're just so grateful to the community for all that you did and participated in that program to get it done quick and fast. We set records with that program, and we're very happy that a lot of that hazardous debris is out of our town, and we want to do the same thing with these standing burnt trees. So at this time, I'd like to introduce Fire Chief John Messina. John?
Well, good evening. I hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving and are looking forward to Christmas. So bear with me. I did not prepare a speech tonight. I'm not very well prepared. Usually I come a little better prepared, but I asked to come and speak today. Over the last few months, the department's been engaging with the community members, and we've been talking about tree removal. We've shifted from debris removal to tree removal, and we're starting to get a sense of reservation from the community on the process, what's going to happen, and the importance of the tree removal. And I'll tell you, on some of these town officials and county officials sitting here, we met, I think, day 11 after the campfire, and we all acknowledged the next disaster that's facing the campfire footprint, fire's over, is the trees. It became obvious that while we still had debris removal to handle, the next disaster that was going to face this community is all the dead trees and what we're going to do with them and the hazard that they pose to the community. I'm not going to get into lobbying for one program or the other, but I just want to send a message to the community. These hazard trees are dangerous, and they are a priority for us to ensure your safety. And I'm not going to get into why, and you guys know that. A tree dies, it falls on somebody, falls on the ground, falls on a car, creates a fire hazard. There's all kinds of hazards associated with them, and you guys are all intelligent enough to figure that out. But I just wanted to really reinforce how important removing these trees from the town of Paradise and the Magalia area is. So there's basically 2 programs. And what I'm going to ask of you from the fire department's perspective is please participate in the program. Number 1, sign up for it. You can always opt out after the fact. Sign up for it. I know we all heard, what are we going to do about the trees? What are we going to do about the trees? Well, there's an option, at least for partial trees that affect the public right-of-way on private property. We have an option now. One option. May not be the most popular option out there, but it is an option. So I ask you to sign up. The second one is, I'm not going to lobby whether you do it on your own or that you go through the government program. That's going to be for you guys to determine. But what I will ask of you is make sure that you guys evaluate each program thoroughly. Because there are some downfalls of each, and there's some benefits of each. But I can tell you, please ensure that if you decide to do this on your own, that you have the means to remove the tree, and that you work closely with your contractor, or if you're doing it yourself. Because I can tell you right now what we're experiencing, it's expensive. And when you go on it on your own, it can get really costly. Some of you may have insurance that'll compensate it. But I can tell you, talking to a town employee today, they have fantastic insurance. The insurance left them short $5,000. That's what they ended up paying out of their own pocket. They didn't wait for any programs. They did it on their own. They wanted to hurry up, rebuild, get back into their home, so they did it themselves. It's expensive. I'm going to tell you that right now. There's going to be a competition for contractors. There's going to be a competition for where we put the biomass or the vegetation. So truly, when you guys are evaluating the pros and cons of each, remember that those trees are going to have to come down. It doesn't matter whether you believe they're a safety hazard or not, they're going to have to come down. And if you choose to do it yourself, please ensure you really explore the options out there for you to remove them. I just wanted to briefly state that to the community. I know there's a lot of concerns and there's some skepticisms, and all of them are valid. But remember, at the end of the day, we're here for one reason only, and that's to make the town that much safer. It's another step to recovery and another step to ensure that we don't have another catastrophic fire in the town. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, John. We really appreciate that. Whoop, you put me in the middle here. Okay. All right. So as I said, I went over the overview, and now Casey with the county is going to go over some of the details of the program. Thanks, Casey.
Thank you, Laura. So Dina Wilson and I will talk a little bit, we'll kind of go over the programs together. I'll talk about the requirement to remove hazard trees and the private program. Then I'll talk a little bit about completing the right of entry form, how that works, where you submit it. Dina will talk about the operational aspects of the government program, and then I'll talk a little bit about the costs of the government program and insurance collection. So those are the pieces that we're going to cover. Then we'll take some questions on the question cards related specifically to that program. Am I speaking right about that? Okay, good. So essentially, the town and the county both passed local ordinances that put in place a requirement for you as a property owner to remove any hazard trees that are rooted in your private property that are so substantially burned by the campfire that they pose a threat to fall within the next 5 years. And if they fall, they will fall into the public right-of-way, a road, or onto improved public property. And in the town, that might mean onto a fire station or a school facility, a parks and rec facility, the bike path, places like this. So what we're here to talk with you about tonight are the two options you have to enroll into a program to make sure that you remove those hazard trees. The removal of the trees is your responsibility. We'll talk a little bit about the eligibility and option of participating in the government program as one way to remove that. But first I want to talk a little bit about the private program. So you can choose to, you may have already removed the hazard trees on your property, or you can choose to remove those trees yourself. That means you have to identify which trees are a hazard. You can do that. You can hire an arborist or a registered professional forester, and then you have to make sure that those trees are felled. You ultimately also have to make sure the timber from those trees is utilized and removed from your property, or if you choose to mill it into lumber, cut it into firewood, or chip and broadcast it into onto your property for erosion control, you need to make sure it's done so in a manner that doesn't create a fire hazard. And both the town and the county have some specifics in their ordinance about what that needs to look like. You can keep and utilize the timber if you choose the private program. You can do that. You will not be able to keep the timber if you elect for the government program. That is the primary difference between the two programs, as well as the cost. If you elect to do the private program, you do that at your own cost. What you do with us is you fill out this inspection access form. It's a one-page form, and it essentially says that we have access to come to your property when you're ready to inspect it. It's kind of like a building permit. We liken it to a building permit. We set the standard being that you must identify and remove the hazard trees. Once you've completed that work, you ask us to come and perform an inspection. We are simply there to look at the property and say, yes, you passed the inspection, or no, you don't, meaning yes, you've passed it, all the trees are down, or no, you still have some additional hazard trees on the property that need to be removed. At that point, you can remove those additional hazard trees, as it would be a requirement to do so, or you can enter into the government program to have those trees removed if they're still accepting entries by way of the right of entry form. So the private program is really just a mechanism or a way for us to confirm that you've done the activity of removing those hazard trees, but you handle all of the removal of the trees. There's no specific way in which you have to do that. We Unlike the debris removal program, don't have a requirement for a work program or work plan or any specifics for whom you hire to do that. You take care of all of that yourself. If you would like to enter the government program, you can do so by completing a right of entry form. The right of entry form is very similar to the one you may have completed for debris removal if you had structures that burned in the campfire and you entered the government program for the removal of the debris from those structures. You'll submit that to the right of entry center. You can mail that in, you can email it in, or you can visit the location in Paradise, Oroville, or Chico to submit those forms. There's a table located outside. There's two fine gentlemen here in the back, Paul Hahn and George Morris, who you might recognize. They're here to answer any questions tonight. They have forms back there. They list all the locations and the ways in which you can submit them. They're also happy to answer any questions that you might have or specifics about either of the programs and any of the forms that you need to submit. There's also a phone number on those that you can call. There's staff who are staffing that call center, and they can take your questions and help answer any additional ones if you have more after you leave tonight before you submit the forms to enroll in the program. So you'll submit that right of entry form. The county will verify the ownership and make sure that you have all the documentation, such as your insurance information if the property is insured, all of the ownership information if it's maybe owned in a trust, that the form is filled out correctly, and then ultimately we will deliver that to the state.
Thanks, Casey. So once the county delivers us your ROE, we will go ahead and process and put it in our system, and we will get it scheduled for the next stage of the process, which is the assessment and evaluation. So what that means is that we will send out a team to your property that will include a registered professional forester or certified expert to look at the trees that are on your property that have the potential to fall in the public right-of-way and or public improved property and determine whether or not they are hazardous. Once they've made that determination, they will mark those trees, catalog them for our purposes, and then we will send a tree removal crew in to basically remove those trees. Once they've done that, we send somebody back out there to basically say, yep, we've removed the correct trees, we've removed all the trees that are hazardous, then we return your ROE to the county to then return back to the homeowner. Pretty simple, 4 steps. In order to be in the government program. Unlike debris removal, it's not a long process, but those are the basic 4 steps. As Casey mentioned, there are a couple of differences between the government program and the private program. One of which she mentioned is that with the government program, unfortunately, you're not able to keep the trees. We are not able to delineate property by property your ability to keep the trees, and we must take those trees, so you won't be able to keep them. Additionally, when we send out an assessment and evaluation team, you are absolutely able to be there during that evaluation. There's a caveat, though. There is no discussion about once the trees have been identified that are hazardous and that they need to go. There is not a debate about that. Once they've been identified by the expert, then they will be removed. So that's something to consider for you. Pardon me.
So will you be leaving any limbs or slash, and what will you be doing with the stumps?
I knew we were forgetting something. I also wanted to mention before that you are actually also able to be on your property during the tree removal. So unlike debris removal, when we had everybody be off because there were hazardous materials on your property, you are able to stay on your property during the tree removal process when the crews are actually there to take the trees. Also, there is a caveat, however. Tree removal is inherently more dangerous than debris removal, so for safety purposes, we may ask you to leave your home at that time and stand basically in a safety zone, or we may ask you to leave for an hour or two just to make sure that we keep you safe. And that is strictly for safety purposes, but you are allowed to be in the general area to watch what our crews are doing. So I did want to make that point. We'll get to questions. Secondly, yes, we will be leaving some of the slash. So slash is basically tree limbs and sort of sawdust that comes from tree removal. If the trees are large enough, then limbs are large enough, we will take those. If they are not, then we will leave them for you. And the stumps, we will also leave the stumps. I'm out of practice because we haven't done this in 2 weeks. And
We'll
we
get
will
there.
be leaving-
We're working on it, yeah.
And we will be leaving the stumps, so we will not take the stumps. We haven't determined the size of the stumps that we will leave. We're still working on that with our contractors, but we will leave the stumps, and we'll let you know later on what that estimate looks like in an FAQ that we'll post on the various websites.
I wanted to mention at every step of the way, when at these different points when someone would be coming out to your home or your property, you will be notified ahead of time, and you are, as Dina said, you will be allowed at any one of those points in time to be there. So just wanted to assure you that you do have that opportunity.
Yes, you will be notified before the assessment phase and for the tree removal phase.
So another area where we've been getting a number of questions is related to building permits. And so I just wanted to clear some of that up because there's a difference between the way that this worked during debris removal and the way that it will work during tree removal. If you want to apply for a building permit, please do so. We're excited for you. And you can submit your building permit application. However, the town and the county will not be able to issue your building permit until you've enrolled in one of the two programs. The tree removal does not have to be complete, but you do have to have submitted the forms and be enrolled in one of the two programs. So that's either the right of entry form or the inspection access form. If you have already submitted your building permit application, congratulations. And if it has been issued, you will not be able to get it finaled unless you have enrolled into one of the two programs. So if you are in some phase of the building process, please make sure that you get the forms. They're in the back, just outside that door, and get them submitted so that it doesn't hold up your building permits. Our intention is not to delay any building permit activity. We want that, we're encouraging it, we're helping to support it. But this is an opportunity for us to connect with you. You're coming in for a building permit. It's an opportunity for us to inform you about this requirement and make sure you get signed up to have the trees removed on your property. We will also be working with Cal OES to make sure that we prioritize sites where building activity is happening. And we want to make sure that all of you who are in that building queue are getting into the program and then ultimately getting prioritized in the process. If there are more questions about the specifics of getting building permits issued, we're happy to speak to those, but in general, it's about enrollment, not completion of the program. So you just need to have the forms submitted into the program.
And also, I just wanted to mention that standing homes will also be prioritized. This is also different than the debris removal program. Your home may be just fine, but you have burnt trees on your property, so that are going to affect the public right away. So those trees will also be, those properties will also be prioritized along with those that have pulled permits or are in the process of building.
So if you participated in the government program for debris removal, or you maybe had a friend or a family member that participated, we talked a little bit about the fact that this program is funded by taxpayer dollars. If you are uninsured, there is no cost to the government program. That means if you were uninsured and you owned the property at the time of the fire, or if you have newly acquired the property and you do not have homeowner's insurance for that property, you can enter into the program as a new owner, as an uninsured owner. If you do have insurance, then you will need to submit that insurance information with your right of entry form, and the county is required to collect from you after the tree removal activity is entirely done. So into 2021 is likely when we would have the information to be collecting for tree removal. We will collect any benefit that you have for tree removal, because we can't use taxpayer dollars to duplicate a private benefit that you have for the same purpose. So if you have within your homeowner's insurance policy or some policy that you carry maybe for a commercial property, any specific insurance for tree removal, or if it's included as a part of your overall policy, we will ultimately collect any of those proceeds that you have back for any of the work that was done. It's likely that the cost for the government to remove the trees will be in excess of what you have for your insurance, but we will not collect more than what you have. So we call it no out-of-pocket cost, because it won't exceed what you have from your private insurance for that purpose. Additionally, if you have other trees that aren't eligible for this program, maybe because they won't reach the right of way, but they would fall maybe just into a living, not just into a living area, but into a living area or into a neighbor's property, you can use your insurance to remove those trees and then deduct those expenses from what we collect back. You need to confirm with your insurance that what you're spending it on is an eligible expense according to your insurance. And then ultimately, we can deduct that from what the county collects back from you. So that's the costs. The deadline. I always forget the deadline. The deadline to enter a program is December 20th. So that's the deadline to complete the right of entry form and turn it in, or complete the inspection access form. This is the door for the private program, apparently. This is the door for the government program. Or submit that inspection access form. So December 20th of this year, just a few weeks away, is the deadline to enroll in a program. And we certainly have a ways to go. We have thousands of property owners that still need to enroll, and I think we're really at a point in our recovery where people may have moved temporarily somewhere else. Maybe they have moved permanently somewhere else. So we're really asking all of you who are here tonight to help us spread the word. This is a mandatory requirement. The hazard trees have to be removed, and there's one of two programs to do it. And we would really appreciate if you can share that with your neighbors, share that with your family, your friends, other folks who have burned trees from the campfire on their property, or who have property in the burn area and maybe have already removed their trees. They also need to enroll in the program so we can do an inspection. It's going to take our whole community to make sure that we remove the hazard trees and it's safe to return and start rebuilding.
And I just want to just step back just a little bit about the public right-of-way. So we normally think of that as a street, but also it can be any public improved property. So those of you that live along the bike trail here in town, if you have a tree that may fall onto the trail, or the lights on the trail, or anything that's a publicly improved property, that your property is eligible for this program. Also, you might not, your home might not be on a public road, but you might live adjacent to town hall, and you might have a tree that would fall on town hall, and so therefore you would be eligible. So if you think that you might be in that position at all and you haven't received notification through the mail, again, you can check with the guys at the table, and you can give them your address, and they can let you know whether or not you're currently eligible and if you would need to sign up for one or two of these programs.
We're also working on putting together a map. So if you're familiar with the debris removal map, we're working on something really similar to that. Thank you to the state for putting that together. I think that will be really helpful. And ultimately, the first stage that it will show are all the properties that are required to sign up for a program. So we hope to have that out really soon, but you can also call 530-552-3030. That's the line into the right of entry center, and they can check your address to see if there is a requirement for your property to enter into one of the two programs.
This is going to operate a lot like the debris removal program. We're doing the state right now, and county and town doing a lot of the planning and the upfront for this. But once it deploys, it's just going to be, as you saw with debris, you're going to start seeing a lot of activity, and things are going to be happening fast because we're going to be getting out these hazardous trees, and we're very excited about that. It's going to be happening very soon.
Okay, so if you have questions and you've filled them out on this card, can you raise them up, and we will come around and collect them. I see a few back here. Mons has a question. Okay, so I'm going to start with this. It says, what options will people have available to them to remove all of the leftover slash? And is there a time frame to remove the slash once the trees are removed?
Currently, there isn't a time frame in stone to remove the slash. But if you want your property, it depends on what program in both programs, you'll have someone be coming out to inspect that you've complied, and that slash is part of what needs to be removed from the property so that it's not continuing to be a hazard. So basically, if you're in the inspection access or private program, we're asking that you, or it's in our ordinance, that you utilize the material. So you could chip it, or even if you have a burn permit, you could burn it, but that has to be taken care of before you'll be certified that you're in compliance.
Ultimately, in the ordinances that the town and the county passed, there is the opportunity to set a deadline for all of that to happen. The way that we handled that during debris removal is the government program wrapped up and we set a deadline for the alternative program, which in this case would be the private program, a few months later. And so, I really think ultimately the goal here is to remove as much of that fuel as Chief Messina mentioned, to get it out of the community so that it doesn't present a fire hazard. I know that there are some private businesses that are working on places where we might be able to go to take that slash and have it chipped up, but ultimately this is going to be a challenge for us, and we will all collectively continue to work on some of those solutions for the community as we move through this program.
And just as a caveat, I wanted to add something we didn't add in our presentation. The state expects to finish the government program within 9 months. So I wanted to make sure that you were aware of that too.
So this question is really asking about, are there resources to be able to contact neighbors? This individual has a neighbor who has a tree on their property. It looks like it's a threat to fall on to their property. We will tell you that for trees that may fall into the right-of-way, we are contacting everyone. We sent letters to everyone. We sent those to the mailing addresses that we have on file with the property tax office, and we are getting some of that returned mail. So if you need to update your address with the assessor's office, please do that. But we will be reaching out directly to everyone in the burn scar, so we will likely reach out to your neighbor. If you need contact information for your neighbor, you can always visit the Butte County Assessor's Office in Oroville at 25 County Center Drive and access ownership information. Removal of trees on neighbors' property that are a hazard to our home and property. Do you want to talk a little bit about the hazard tree removal program for trees that aren't eligible for this program?
So trees that currently aren't eligible, we do have right now, Ron Tackett will be talking, he's with USDA. There is a grant program that if you're eligible can help you with removing those trees. Also, the town is applying for a hazardous mitigation grant to take out the rest of the trees. So at the end, whatever isn't covered under this program, it would be covered under that program. So we've already submitted the application. It's going to take still a few months whether or not to find out we've been awarded. It is a competitive process on that application, but that would be primarily the program to then take out the rest of the trees. Currently, as the program would be structured, as we're submitting it, there would be a cost share to the property owner of 25%. We're looking for funding sources to help augment that, but at this point, it would be 75% would be covered by the government, federal FEMA assistance, and the 25% cost share would come from the homeowner.
Okay. Chief Messina, you want to address your question?
The question is, why are you still allowing people to burn leaves and limbs on their property? It's a good question, and we do get a lot of concern from the public about burning, but I'm going to tell you, as much concern we get about burning, we want to burn. It is an effective way to reduce fuel on your property. But I will tell you, we make sure when we say it's okay to burn, it's darn right okay. That has to do with weather. We issue the permit, we educate. The non-residential burning permits, we do an inspection. We ensure that the property owner understands that he needs to take some mitigation measures that it doesn't escape off the property. And I think if you guys look over the past years, I think the town over the winter has been pretty successful in allowing burning, and you don't hear of very many issues. So as of today, we will continue to allow burning. It's an effective mechanism to reduce the hazards. It's relatively cost effective, and we still feel it's safe. Now, when it dries out, we may suspend burning, and that's a decision that the fire department makes based off of a bunch of inputs that we get.
They'll bring it back. Okay. I have a question here for PG&E, and I'm going to ask Dan Blair to come up and take this one. Dan Blair with PG&E. It says, how are you going to prevent gas line issues like happened on Red Bud?
Good evening, Dan Blair with PG&E in our local North Valley division. I'm prepared today to give an update on our vegetation management. So I'm not particularly prepared for gas questions. We are going to have a booth in the back. I'd love to, whoever had that question about that specific incident, to talk to our customer service folks and we can get you some specifics. As far as overall safety, we do everything we can to ensure the safety of our construction as we move forward. And that safety is always our more priority. So I encourage you to please talk to our folks out there. We can get you some specifics so we can make sure we follow up on that.
Thank you, Dan. And excuse me just a second, Casey. I just wanted to also remind everyone that PG&E is at the town every Tuesday from 10 to 2. They're there, so if anyone wants to personally come in and talk to a representative from PG&E, please use that time to do so. Thank you.
So I have a question. This says, trees on abandoned property falling on house that survived. And then I am going to merge this with the one after it, which is that this individual has 2 permits on their property. They're threatened by numerous hazard trees, but the property owner adjacent to them is unresponsive. And so I just want to remind everyone that because there is a mandatory requirement to remove the trees that are rooted in your property, those trees are your responsibility. And so ultimately, if you don't enroll in one of the 2 programs, the town and the county will use our abatement authority to come through and remove those trees. We will ultimately have to lien your property if we have to do that. We don't want to do that, right? It's going to be much more expensive for you as a property owner, but it's ultimately the way that the trees will get removed. So if you have neighbors or others in your neighborhood that are unresponsive, those trees will get removed. It will probably be toward the end of the program that we do that. That's how it worked in debris removal. We ultimately only ended up needing to abate less than about 50 properties of the almost 13,000 parcels that were in the debris removal program, and we hope to have that same kind of enrollment in the tree removal program. But we will make sure the trees get removed. We just want to encourage everyone to enroll either in the government program by signing the ROE, or if you've already removed the trees or plan to do it yourself, to enter into the private program. But the trees will come out.
And that process obviously takes a lot longer if we have to go through that. We don't want to go through that, and that's why at the beginning of this meeting I want to say, just thank you to all of you, because you are what made the debris removal process so successful. And we're looking for that community participation in this program to have the exact same success. And as Casey said, we had like 50 properties out of 13,000. That's a very low percentage. And again, thanks to all of you for helping and spreading the word, and we want to do that same thing now.
So I have a question here that says, what distance will be used to qualify a hazard tree, the height of the tree or the standard distance from a public space? So for the government program, we're looking at trees that would fall into the public right-of-way. So just for an example, we'll use a public roadway. If that tree can fall even 1 centimeter onto that roadway and it was deemed hazard, then it would qualify. So let's say that tree is 100 feet away from the roadway. So that one qualifies, that one takes out. What if you have a tree right next to it, it's only 50 feet high? We will double the height of that tree and include that as an eligible tree. So it's double the height of the tree. And keeping in mind that the roadway is not necessarily the end of that right-of-way. So it could include distance away from that roadway or public improved property. So we will be looking at those boundaries to make that assessment. But essentially, every single tree will be evaluated based on the height and how it would fall onto the right-of-way. So it is double the height of the tree.
So I have a question here that said, what about trees that are dead or dying that are not street hazards but are fire dangers? The government program is funded by FEMA using public assistance dollars, and there are eligibility requirements for that program. And there is a requirement that the tree pose an imminent danger to the public, and that it would be able to fall into the public right-of-way or onto public improved property. And that is why the trees that are eligible are the ones that Dina is talking about, double the height of the tree that could fall into that right-of-way or onto improved property. We fully recognize that you have other trees on your property or may have other trees on your property that are either a risk to fall or that you can consider to be a fire hazard. Unfortunately, the public assistance funding is not available for those types of trees, and that's what Laura mentioned about looking at other programs to be able to remove those trees. I have one additional question that's actually two of the same questions, so I'll address it together. And it's asking, what about the requirement to remove trees on private property? And so the town and the county both requested of OES, and OES ultimately requested of FEMA, approval to remove all of the trees. That's trees that could fall into a public right-of-way, trees that could fall onto a private road, and trees that could fall onto living spaces. FEMA denied trees that could fall into living spaces. They ultimately approved outright trees that could fall onto public property, and they are still asking us for additional data about trees that could fall onto private roads. We don't have a final determination about trees that could fall into private roads, so we don't know yet about that requirement and then eligibility for those properties into that government program. We continue to have dialogue as much as today. I'm still getting Dina information, and we hope to know really soon an official answer on the private roads. So please make sure that you're signed up for email updates from Make It Paradise or from ButteCountyRecovers.org so that you will get that information as soon as we know an official answer about eligibility on private roads.
Okay, so I have an additional question. Is there any option to opt out of the government program after the assessment is made? That hasn't been fully determined yet with our contractor. However, in debris removal, the standard that we used was you could opt out until basically the debris removal crew showed up. Likely that will be the case for tree removal, but I can't give you a substantive answer on that because that's still in negotiation with our contractors. If that was an option for you to go out, you'll do the assessment, then you choose to opt out of the program, you will still potentially be receiving a bill to your insurance company for any work that the state did on behalf of the government program. So if we did an assessment and it cost a certain amount and you have a tree removal policy within your homeowner's policy, that may, some of that money will be collected as a result of that.
That is how we handled it in debris removal. We had circumstances where people had gotten all the way through the phase of the evaluation, the asbestos evaluation, and then before debris removal ultimately wanted to opt out and go into the alternative program. We ultimately will be using the insurance collection tools. We'll be invoicing you for the costs of that. However, if you use all of your tree removal insurance money to remove your trees, there won't be anything to collect for those costs. Okay, so those are our last questions. We really appreciate it. I think there's a few more folks to talk here, and then there's George and Paul in the lobby to answer questions, and then we'll all be in the lobby after to answer additional questions as well.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Jody Jones. Most of you know me as the mayor, but tonight I'm talking to you simply as a private citizen about private roads and damage to those private roads. So this is not about trees. The town has been struggling since the fire and the debris removal program about how we can get our private roads repaired. There's a program to repair the public roads from all of the damage caused by the fire and the debris removal and probably the tree removal program. But there is nothing to help with the damage to private roads. They're not eligible for any government grants or disaster relief. So we were brainstorming probably a month or so ago about what could we do. And we considered the town trying to file a claim against PG&E for the damage to the private roads, but the town attorney advised us that they couldn't do that because they had no standing. Someone who could file a claim for that had to be somebody who lived on a private road. So my husband and I happened to live on a private road. So we said, okay, we'll file the claim. And we filed a class action claim against PG&E. The way this works is the class would be all the private roads in Paradise. And we have to convince a judge that it's a valid claim. In order to do that, the more people we have signed on, the better chance we have of convincing the judge to accept the claim. So I think I have another slide. Could you put it up? There we go. So if you would like to join in this effort, you can send the information that's up there to paradiseprivateroads@gmail.com and we'll add you in. Why should you join? Well, if we get the roads fixed, the private roads fixed, the property values along those private roads are better. We have clean and repaired streets instead of potholes and some private roads that have gone to gravel. We're able to hold PG&E accountable for the damage that they caused to those roads. There's really no other options for those private roads other than the people living along them to pay to have them fixed. And I know of one family, they live on a fairly short, I think there's 4 or 5 houses on that road. They got an estimate for what it would cost. It was $80,000. Road repairs are really not in the price range of any of us. One of the questions I've got is, can you do this and have your own personal claim against PG&E? And the answer is yes. It doesn't affect any personal claim you might have against PG&E, but you can't claim the damage to your private road in that personal claim. If we're successful, this would be different than if you got the money for the damage to your part of your private road in your personal claim. Then you have that money just for your little piece, and maybe your neighbor didn't get any, and how do you actually make the repairs happen? So if this is successful, the money would go into one pot. It would be used to contract for road repairs for all the private roads in town. We already are working with an engineer to do a damage assessment, so we have an accurate picture of the damage to the private roads. So I would ask that you help us clean up our town and get our private roads fixed by joining if you live along a private road. And you can send all of your contact information as it says on the screen. For those of you who are listening via live streaming, please go ahead and go on that email account and send in your information and we'll add you in. Or you can see my husband and I at a table in the back after the meeting, and you can fill out a little form and we'll add you in. Thank you very much. Can I take a question? She has one question, sure. I don't know the answer to that, but come see me at the table and we'll get that information and we'll find out from the attorney whether we can include that. Who's next?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Laura, and everyone for inviting me here to share with everyone today. What I hope to do is go over our loan and grant programs. I encourage everyone to obviously take advantage of all the programs that are available in addition to our programs as well. We can use our programs with other programs in matching monies and doing whatever it takes to help people get back to where they were or possibly were. So first, just to describe a couple of programs we got that I'm not going to cover today. We have two loan programs. One is a direct loan program where we're the lender. We can help you with your insurance proceeds that you have left, or if you need additional funds to help, we become the lender. You make your payment to us. We make the loan to you to rebuild or purchase a home in Paradise. We have a second program, a guarantee program, where we work with banks, and the bank makes a loan, and we come in and guarantee that loan. So we can help, and they're all income qualified, and we have various handouts and information that we can pass out. As a note, we're going to be working at the Brick Center coming soon. I'm not sure, Laura, do you know when that's going to open? First of the year. And then we'll have staff there to answer questions and help you apply for some of the programs we got. So as a note, I checked with our staff today, and we're processing about 25 applications from folks in the Paradise area right now for loans and grants and various programs that we have to help individuals. So as I was leaving my office in Davis, I knew I had to kind of race through all the traffic to get here. The phone rang, so I grabbed the phone, and it was a lady from Paradise asking about help with one of our loan programs. So I discussed with her. You know how it is when you take that last phone call at the end of the day. You got to wonder, should I take that call or not? So I'm glad I did, because as I walked through the door, the lady I talked to on the phone tracked me down somehow and met me at the front door and said, yes, I followed up. I emailed you. So if you'll help me with giving me that lender's name, I don't know if you want to raise your hand. This lady back here knows how to apply for stuff. So she's a lady to talk to because she knows what she's doing. But, okay, what I hope to do is just briefly go over this program and describe what we can do to help folks. So I intend to go over the eligibility criteria for what we call the 504 Loan and Grant Program. What are the eligibility criteria for borrowers and homeowners? These are for individuals. We'll talk about the maximum loan, the grant, and then the use of the loan and grant funds and what they can be used for. The next slide shows some of the things that we can use the loan and grant funds for. In the middle, you see a house with a new roof. On the right, you'll see some well drilling. There's some handicapped accessibility things that we can work on, ramps, various things for the loan and grant program. And it's a really good program, and we can assist people with a lot of different things, including tree removal, which is a part of what we can do. After the campfire, we met with UC Berkeley. There's believe it or not, a fire expert there. And we met with her to discuss what we could use in our programs for abatement and fire prevention, like improvements on homes, and cutting trees and brush to keep fire from your home. So we came up with this program. She's got a handout. We'll have that at the Brick Center as well. So if you go to the next slide. Nationwide, we have about $28 million in grants and $28 million in loans annually that we can give and loan out to people throughout the country. In California, that averages about $1 million in each program, the loan and the grant program, a year. It may not sound like a lot, but as we work with folks to repair their homes, there's a lot of funds that are distributed. We are giving money back because there aren't enough applicants for the program. So we are encouraging folks to apply for these loans and grants. Previously, we couldn't work with folks in Paradise because it wasn't determined to be a rural area, but now it is. And so through legislation passed by the House and Senate and then confirmed by the governor, we're now able to help folks in Paradise. And so we're excited about doing that and helping folks. So our fiscal year runs from October 1st through September 30th, and we are actively taking applications right now for loans and grants. Okay, so what is the borrower eligibility criteria? First, there's an income limit, and your income needs to be below 50% of the median household income for the county. And what that works out to be is for a household of 1 to 4, that's $33,250. And for a household of 5 to 8 is $43,900. You could see the other criteria, U.S. citizen, permanent resident alien, and you must own and occupy the home in the eligible rural area. Obviously, if you've lost your home, you could still use these monies to help rebuild it. So for instance, let's say you have insurance money and it covers a partial rebuild, and it won't cover the whole rebuild. You can use this loan to supplement rebuilding. It has great terms. It's a maximum of $40,000 with a 20-year loan with a fixed rate of 1%. So the interest rate's really good and the payment's really good. Works out to about $4.60 a month for every $1,000 that you borrow. So it's helpful in that way, and we can assist folks in a rebuild. We can also work with insurance proceeds like we were talking about. And so we can, whatever insurance monies you have, we can supplement those in helping you rebuild. Once you get a builder or somebody that you're working with to rebuild your house, we can take a second on the home. Let's say you need a lender needs to take a first mortgage position. We can come in with a second on this loan. Okay, and let's go to the next slide here. And then now eligibility for the grants. So it's the same basic eligibility criteria for the loan, except that we have this worksheet. We'll work with you and send you some information to help you. You must be 62 years of age or older. So there is an age requirement on the grant. A lifetime grant of $10,000. So for this program, in helping you rebuild or work with some tree removal on your property, we can have a maximum of $50,000 to one individual, which can help. Okay, and so what are some of the uses? Like I discussed, we looked at roof repair, septic, well, site development, just about anything. Improving your defensible space, brush tree removal, and clear an area to enable emergency vehicles, just a number of things, as long as you own the property and you intend on rebuilding on your property. So you can see here's some of the items that in working with the UC Davis or UC Berkeley expert, we can do these dual pane windows, tempered glass, renovate vents, gutters, and you can even add heating elements. We can also do appliances. So if you need appliances, this program can help with that for grants and loans with appliances. Okay, and then use of loan funds, and you can do other things with them as well, as modernizing, painting, site development work, replace flooring, and all the things that you're working with. Anything that you would do in remodeling your home. So how do you qualify? Or basically you would contact one of our staff. We have a local office. I'll show that to you in a couple of minutes here, the contact information. And then, like I say, we're going to be helping staff the Brick Center. We'll be there to assist folks in applying for all three of our housing programs as we work through this. So what you would do is contact, email, or like this lady, send an email and then stalk. That's a really good way to get a hold of us. And then, just kidding there. And then we'll be responsive and work with you to get this going. We'll do a pre-qualification. You return that to us. And then we will give you an indication of what you would qualify for. So if you go to the next. So right there you got the local Butte County Orville office. We got Nicole Roldan, and there's her phone number and email address there. And then you got myself, I'm here. And so, again, we're here to assist folks as much as we can in helping through this difficult time. I want to point out a handout. On this program, we have a handout that's kind of floating around. So make sure you get a copy of this. If you don't qualify, but you know of somebody that does or may qualify, I would hand them this handout, and then we can see what we can do to help. Okay, great. Any questions that we have from anybody? Yes. Right, yeah, I get that. That's a really good question. We have this handout, and I gave it to one of the ladies here. So I think either she's got it at the back table. There should be some in the lobby now. So this one page, Home Repair Loan and Grant Pilot Program. They'll give you all the information you need right there.
Any questions we'll do in the lobby after the program, if that's okay with you.
Great. Okay, I guess I got the hook here, right? So, okay, thank you. I appreciate your time.
All right, thank you. Good evening. Like I mentioned before, I'm Dan Blair with PG&E, and thank you for the opportunity tonight to update you on some of our vegetation management efforts. So during the several months following the campfire, PG&E removed more than 95,000 dead and dying trees that were deemed potentially hazardous to our infrastructure. In the preceding months, we've continued to perform our regular annual patrols in Paradise to check for trees and branches growing too close to our lines. The annual patrols and work are required by state law, and PG&E performs this work throughout our service territory along our power lines. In high fire threat areas, we're required to gain clearances of 4 feet around power lines with a recommended minimum clearance of 12 feet or more at the time of prune to ensure compliance year-round. While this work is separate from PG&E's removal of hazardous trees damaged in the campfire, inspectors doing our annual patrols will also be looking for any trees that may not have survived that pose a potential threat to power lines. And if those are identified, they will be removed. If customers wish to keep the logs, they can notify PG&E that they wish them to be left on site. Otherwise, the logs will be hauled away at no cost to customers. And if you believe your property still has logs on it that PG&E cut down, please let us know in the lobby, and we'll have someone take a look at that. Here in Paradise and surrounding communities on the Ridge, you may see PG&E vegetation management inspectors and contractors in your neighborhood multiple times in a year. This is because, in addition to our routine work, we're also expanding and enhancing our vegetation management program to further reduce wildfire risk and ensure the safety of the community and our workers. Our enhanced program addresses overhanging limbs and branches directly above and around the lines. We'll also evaluate the condition of trees that may need to be addressed if they're tall enough to strike the lines. When pruning overhanging branches and limbs, we'll focus on the area directly above and around the line. You may see white, green, or yellow paint on trees, and these are the different programs that we're using to identify those trees to be removed or pruned. And moving forward into 2020, you may also see orange paint. The NC mark on the tree means that the tree needs to be removed because in many cases, standards have changed for clearances and trees have to come out. A P1 means priority 1 or needed to be removed soon as the tree condition as it poses an immediate hazard to power lines. And then a P2 means priority 2. And that was a tree that was fire damaged and would die and needs to be removed within a year. As PG&E is now going to underground power lines in Paradise and surrounding areas, we expect we will not need to remove as many trees previously identified as the NC trees that were originally marked. So we've also reevaluated trees that have been marked P2 as needing to be cut down within a year of the fire as they pose a threat to the lines. But upon reevaluation, some of those trees are expected to survive and no longer pose a hazard. So that's why you may have seen some tree markings removed that were marked previously. As property owners rebuild and apply for PG&E service, we will review the trees specific to that property to determine if any additional trees need to be removed for construction of our facilities. To get this process started as soon as possible, please submit an application for new service at pge.com/CCO. And if you need additional information on applying for service in the process, please visit our booth after the presenters. Once you apply, a job owner will be assigned to your rebuild to walk you through the process, and this will include vegetation management staff reviewing the site for any potential trees that require our attention. I want to close by saying we're fully committed to working with the community rebuild and maintain our infrastructure in a way that reflects the future needs of the town, while also keeping safety our top priority. If you have any questions or feedback, we'll have members of our local team out in the lobby after everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. And that is the conclusion to our program. So I want to thank all of the speakers that gave us information on trees, on private roads, on anything to do with the town, fire safety. And also wanted to give everyone a heads up that for the January 2020 community meeting, we're actually going to be doing a rebuilding checklist focus. So if you've headed over to makeitparadise.org, that checklist will be there. And we are going to have different individuals here to explain that, different pieces of the checklist, and work through it with you. And then we also gave everyone comment cards. So if you have suggestions on themes for meetings in 2020, we're all ears. Thanks for coming.